Yes, here we go. It's the Tuesday ticket. Joined by Steve-O, Matt the Knight. What's happening, Steve-O Sen? Back your travels. You've been away to France this time, I believe. Good time?
Yep. Aye, good mate. Good. It was the missus' 40th birthday, so it'd been a trip that I'd been planning for about a year and a half. So it was good. It was good, we made the most of it. Done a lot of things. I'm exhausted, so all good things come with an opposite, don't they?
You will be after this episode, I'm sure, mate. Having to listen to me. It was meant to be three of us. It's only two. Connor Carr just replied at 1 minute to 9 saying, he's in his bed, mate. Can he do it? What a rock star, eh? What a fucking rock star. But yes, one journey that you do not need to plan ahead for is the bus. You know how often we go live now. This is the Tuesday ticket. 9 o'clock on a Tuesday means you jump back on the bus. You cause no fuss. And whilst we're about to kick off, there's 70 on the bus already. Wow, double-decker earlier than usual has been set up. Double-decker mode, we'll call it. If you want to give us a wee like right now and get the bus even busier, please do so. Hit the like button. Give us a wee share on your social media if you want. A share, slag the hair, all that carry on. If you want to become a Bhoycie Bus member like so many of you, such as like Pam, like Jim C, like Ali, like Hale Times 2, like Jim Dolan, like Scott Howe, Charles Smith, Ali, Brown Warrior, there's loads of you, Ryan Taylor, Les Watts, Alex Forsyth as well, sneaking in there, love it. And Johnny Logue's our latest member, even though he contributes on the channel. What can we do? If you want to as well, go to piesports.com and get a tasty pastry beverage. If you're on the mind, wouldn't be like me. But if you want to go to Pie Sports and buy a pie, it's 12.5% discount at the checkout when you use the code BUS1888. Okay, the title of the show: Dire Straits. As the expected EPL transfer rumours begin, we're into the nitty-gritty, Steve. It's going to be the last 16 days of the window. This is where I expected the players of that level we can't normally get to start arriving at Celtic. I don't think there'll be busloads of them, if you will. But I did think there would be 2 or 3 made that you'll know have the hallmarks of Brendan Rodgers, and you will know he has been involved from point A of the transfer to point Z of it being completed. And what I would say at this moment in time is, whilst Lager's still not even been, he's not been confirmed as of yet officially. I think that one's pretty much a done deal. Now it's a lot of rumours that are beginning to fly. Obviously, the Eric Dier one surfaced around lunchtime today, and that seemed to be met with quite a lot of negativity. Foden's then I seen getting linked from Wolves, and of course that was met with a lot of but we can't afford him and he's too much money. I think now we're in a stage, for whatever reason, I think the fans' patience, a lot of fans, I don't speak for them all, I certainly don't speak, I don't include myself in this. I just feel right now they're going to poke holes in whatever we do in these last 2 weeks. I don't think anyone's got the patience levels to work out that a strategy could have been in place from the get-go, that this was, we were going to get the Celtic players done, and then the last couple of weeks of the window was going to be where Brendan pounced and, was able to get in guys that might become available because other situations play out. No one's got the patience to do that, so whatever we do now, it's going to get described as haphazard, it's going to get described as too much money, it's going to get described as he's overrated. In Eric Dyer's case, I think I don't know how many caps he's got for England, 50 caps, played in the World Cup semi-final, he's played in the Champions League final, but I think he's only about 29, 30.
29,
but then he's getting treated as if he's a donkey today as well. I wonder if we're in a scenario now where the next 2 weeks, unless it's KT and a bag of cans, we're doomed, Steve-O, to try and celebrate the players that come in too much. And I find it hard to take, to be honest with you, or hard to understand.
As you said, we're in this kind of stage where it's a real mixed reaction. The patience is grown thin and it's wearing. And, I'll be honest, I've very much, we've had these conversations before. And I would say we understand if we want to try and get a slightly better quality, you look at when certain European leagues declare the sort of squad and anything that's on the periphery. There's going to be a lot of good quality players in that sort of no man's land, and that's maybe the time to pick them up. The one thing I would say with myself, in my opinion on it, it's slightly wearing away a wee bit. I think that we need numerous players. As we all know, it's no mystery. It's never been a secret. But I think that we need them. We need to see them coming in within the next week to 10 days, because despite what some statistic people will say to you, the stats towels out there, and they'll say, well, if you look at XG and all this nonsense, the first 2 games, it's more. My big concern is when you look at the actual perceived quality or squad over those 2 match days. And quite frankly, I think that I'm concerned to see the PR machine rolling for the likes of guys like Turnbull, Ralston, Welsh, Taylor. I think these are guys that are maybe well into their cycle, 3, 4, maybe plus years. If you look at guys like James Forrest, and everybody's a place, but they shouldn't be filling out a squad. And I think that it's slightly concerning in some of those games. We've seen some deficiencies that have been getting shown by, let's just say, average teams, and we'll get some tougher tests in that. So I would want to see team players coming in, understand that you maybe got to wait for a certain quality of player, but we need them in as soon as possible, because there is a game against Rangers around the corner. And no matter what you think of them, I certainly wouldn't want to go into that game with the squad that we had against Aberdeen. I'd like to see a couple of extra bodies in there. With regards to who they are, guys like Dier and stuff, as you say, people turn their nose up. What are we expecting? Much like we said about Joe Hart when he first signed, there's a reason you get X amount of caps for England. There's a reason that you've played at that higher level. And maybe he is just a guy who's down in his luck and went through a bad patch and needs a bit of rejuvenation. And if there's a manager that's going to pick someone back up, then I would certainly like to put my money on Brendan Rodgers, So if these are the kind of guys we're getting linked with, I'll take it at face value. I'm not going to write them off. I don't think they're desperate names. They might not be sexy names, but they've certainly got a track record.
They would fall perfectly into what we kind of expected, though, if there was a Rodgers sort of template for the signings he would make to try and improve the first team. We're not going to be getting EPL first team regulars coming up to Celtic, so we've speculated for a number of weeks now that probably his knowledge, his market of knowledge would be the EPL. That is the waters he's swam in for the vast, vast majority of his managerial career. Ange was someone who'd operated the most recent 2.5 years of his career in the J-League. He plundered it. Fair play to him, because he's, what raised eyebrows at the success rate that he had. I just would like to see that same patience, the same optimism shared for if Rodgers goes to a market that he knows really well and decides to bring in a player that, whilst we might all have opinions on them, we've never watched these guys week in, week out for 90 minutes like we would claim. We kind of feed off what the media narrative is at the time, and if they're in vogue or not. We're not sitting here, apart from Regan, who's watching Spurs 90 minutes each week, for example, right? And or Wolves 90 minutes each week, right? And it's the exact same with the J-League. None of us had actually heard the place because we didn't watch a minute of it. But also, that meant we didn't have any sort of bias whatsoever. And it's so easy now to go, barely gets a game for Spurs. Out the England team now. Pish. It's like, all right. I don't know how we quickly arrive at that. I just think we should be showing the same levels of respect to Brendan, at the very least, than what Ange was afforded when he was bringing in guys that didn't have the same sort of career history as someone like an Eric Dier. I'm just interested on that one. If it is going to be EPL players, and maybe ones that aren't as fancied, it's also not always been the worst idea. I know there's been hit and misses from that. For every Alan Thompson, there's a Gino, right? And I get stuff like that, right? But notwithstanding that, this isn't someone who's signing players for the name. It's people that he has a proper knowledge of, and a market, as I say, that he's been involved in for a long time. And I think the very least we can do is get behind whatever his plans are. No one's saying these two are the players that are going to be signed. But I do find it encouraging now that there seems to be a bit of a narrative shift to now being as EPL market that seems to be getting the laser focus now for Celtic's transfer intentions. And just before I come to you, Steve-O, a big shout out to Hill Times 2. Thank you so much, mate. £10 in there from his credit and his Google account. Have a beer, boys. Monty, Phil, and John will let the games. Let's get them in soon. No worries. Cheers, pal. Thanks so much for that. Sorry, Steve. On you go.
No, that's the thing, is when it's hard to, like, we as fans, let's face it, we want our cake and we want to eat it. So there was all the chat, like, we give a £15 million player or whatever. And then when we almost kind of backtrack ever so slightly on it, anything under what appears to be a sex name. Let's look at the guy. What was the young guy that he plays? Sort of like Ryder or something. He's like 15 million. You know the guy I'm talking about, the young Swiss boy.
Reader. Yeah.
So if you look at him, is he a sexy name? No. We've seen clips of him and he looks good, but people say 15 million, so that's good. You look at an Eric Dier, or, some of the other guys that we've been getting linked with, the value's down there, but even though who they are, that doesn't excite people because the price tag isn't there. Now, I'm quite comfortable with guys like this, and I would rather we were going out and getting the likes of, say, Dier from, like down south, or even I know it's probably nonsense, but Antonio. See if you're going to get guys of that sort of standard for West Ham coming in. Dier, I'd expect a couple of seasons, you get more length out of him. But even a guy like Antonio coming in for one season, if that's what it was, I'd be a lot more comfortable with that kind of guy who's a name who they've never been a fancy name, they've never been a sexy name, because it tends to be, I think, the guys that get brought in, like your Joey Bartons or that have got this sort of tag reputation attached to them. They're the ones that tend to, let you down. Whereas, look at Scott Sinclair. When he came to us, was he considered to be a particularly sexy or exciting name? No, a lot of folk were saying he was washed up.
I think there was quite a lot of despondent fans at that signing.
Even Joe Hart, I know the tide's turning on him a wee bit, but when he came in, were people saying that he was, a sexy name? No, he was Joe Hart. I mean, who he was, but he was washed up. So I think, as you're saying about Rodgers, he's looking at markets that he knows and he'll look at players that he knows, but he knows that he's not going to go out and get the quote-unquote sexy names, the guys who are maybe on the bench and a squad of 25 or whatever. It's just not going to happen because their values are out there. But there is real value and quality in these sort of names that have maybe just fallen by the wayside. And as you rightly says, he's not getting a Spurs squad. Well, that's probably because, like most of the big teams, when they do their upgrade, it's a bridge too far for some of these guys, so they eventually start to come back the way. So what do? Did they either drop further down the EPL ladder with their bottom half teams? Did they go to a bigger championship team? Did they try their luck abroad? Or did they come to someone like us, or in some cases, a Rangers, who can give them a platform? So I would certainly trust his judgment of these sort of peripheral characters down south, and that he's signing them based on not reputation. Obviously he'll seen them, but he's signing them more on what he's seen in them week in, week out, and thinking about how they can fit into his squad rather than it needs to be a marquee name. So I think fans need to get a wee bit more realistic. And to say, as the likes of Dier, he could come up here and he could rejuvenate himself. Even, the flip side of it could be a Duffy, dare I say it. But, he's worth looking into.
Yes.
Yeah,
Steve, we're going to pull up Strange Love the Doctor's comment here. It's good to have you on the bus. As always, Strange Love. The difference is Fabian Ryder is objectively good and has resale value. What is Dier? And where's the logic? Now, there's so many avenues we can go down with this, with Strange Love's point. Obviously, he watches a heck of a lot more Swiss football than me. And if you've got that he's objectively good from the amount of football you've watched, Ryder or Reader, play Strange Love, I bow to your knowledge on it. No two ways about it. I don't know. What is Dier? Well, like we outlined, he's a guy with 50-odd England caps, played in a World Cup semi-final. Was he involved in the Euros run to the final? I can't remember, I don't know, but he's certainly been involved in the England team for the best part of the last sort of 6-7 years, the first team. It's not an easy thing to do. They're one of the top-ranked countries in the world. I think if you take away England and substitute it for Belgium, for example, I think fans would get a lot more excited, if I'm being honest to you. And has resale value. Well, this is why you can't have your cake and eat it, Strange Love. Because on one hand, We're desperate for the club to spend the money they've got on first team oven ready players. And yet, secondly, when we do go and get someone who might just be, we get 3-4 years out of them in the first team. You're right, we won't make a dink back in transfers, but they'll bring they'll cement a position in the team that's crucial going forward. And as we try and compete, obviously, in Europe's top competition, things like this, and win trophies domestically, by the way, along the way, sometimes that type of signing, I would say, is quite welcomed. I look at Scott Sinclair, as you just spoke about there, completely different position, of course. We actually look at what he achieved in the 2.5 years he was here, the number of goals he scored. He got about 60 to 70 goals in 2.5 years.
He was great.
Crazy number of assists.
Yeah.
And yes, he left on a free after the 2.5 years that he'd been here, but good on him. Like, that was a brilliant investment. Include the wages. Let's say it was on 20-25 grand a week. Maybe all in it was £5 million. I think we got good bang for a buck on that. £5 million all in on a Scotty Sinclair. And I'm not saying that's the money involved for a Dier or anything. I really called him Kieran Dier there. But what I would say is sometimes there has to be players brought in. Bruce Dyer. Sometimes there has to be players they've brought in that are just going to hit the first team, they hit the ground running in the first team, and maybe we need to get out of the mindset of always thinking about the business bit at the background of all opinion that we give. And I think that's maybe the difference. Maybe sometimes you need to make a football signing, strange love, and not one always constantly thinking about the business side of things as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this has been a sort of market tactic that I've championed for a long period, as you well know, and it was particularly around the goalkeeping position, where I'd say time and time again, I think there's certain positions in our squad, as you said, it's for a footballing and experience and what they can offer right now sort of standpoint, rather than looking further down the line. And I touched on that, and I says, you know, for Celtic, as much as want us to go out and buy the likes of, you know, Livakovic, pay 6 or 7 million for him, and then you might get a good couple of years on, sell him on. Equally, I would be quite happily doing, and I'm going to say it, what Rangers done, going and get a Jack Butland, going and get a guy with vast experience who is on the periphery, who wants to play first team football. And guys like Dier, and that happens in absolutely every position across the park, there will be guys down there with vast experience who are on the outside and they want to play. You know, I'm not saying the Scottish League's a higher level or a great level, but the likes of the bit of European football, but a guy who's not really won anything as far as I can tell and wants to add some silverware. You get these guys in for a relatively nominal fee. If the wages stack up and it's not ridiculous for what you're going to get, then you get them in, you get them for 2, maybe 3 years, maybe 4, depending on their age and how they, things pan out, and you get the best out of them. Your value for money is based on what they do on the park, what they provide, and if they're going to help you go over the line in tournaments and ultimately win trophies or progress in Europe, whatever it is. We can get away with that, and we should be looking to dot certain positions in our team with these kind of signings, where it's simply, as you say, it's just about business. It's about what they can do in the here and now. And, if we get a wage structure and we're wanting to pay a guy like Dier, say, 30,000 a week, right? And we get 3 solid years out of somebody like that, I'm more than happy, because I'd like to think that with his experience of what somebody like that could offer, that it's paid itself. Same with Hart. Hart cost us next to nothing, and as my understanding, his modest wages. All right, he's sort of on the down slope now, but when he walks out the door, you couldn't turn around and say it wasn't good value for money whilst he was here. And that's what I think fans need to get out the mindset. We're always looking at bank balances and looking at what we can sell on and getting excited about the prospect of that. Yes, we should be doing that as a large part of the squad, but there's nothing wrong with supplementing it with guys for the here and now. And as I said, he fits that bill. Even the boy for Wolves that we've sort of been, loosely linked with today, again, another guy that you maybe get 2 or 3 years out of it, and he moves on for a lower fee. But if what you get out of him at the time is worth it, that's all that matters.
I think that's fair. Going back to the actual market itself, there's obviously was a link yesterday as well with the Nantes fullback Quentin Merlin. And again, it's funny that, because that gives you sort of flashbacks to Brendan's first spell in charge as well, where it did seem that there was going to be that. There was, there was obviously Edward and Cham. They had Dembele in the ranks. There was a French sort of element at the squad then, and maybe it's a market that for whatever reason Brendan's got close contacts with. Not entirely sure what, but that would be interesting if he was to go back to Ligue 1 and his
Yeah.
debut window too. Again, we see the links, Steve, with the fees, things like this, like between 7 and 9 million. Is this something that for some reason subconsciously reassures fans? Do you think we're a wee bit in a space where only Ange, when he was here, seemed to somehow be able to sign players for little value and is not to prejudge them? Maybe just because the first sort of raft of signings that he made seemed to hit the ground running.
Mhm.
And I wonder, him aside, he's an exception to the rule, I think. I think as fans that there is a bias. And by the way, the majority of the comments I read in the live chat say they don't care about the fee. But then I kind of look a wee bit deeper into it. And I go, I think there is a subconscious that the fee dictates. But notwithstanding that, when it comes to a fan's perspective, if you're investing a hell of a lot of money a year into season books, shirts, strips for the kids, etc., have you maybe got a right to then demand that you do see an investment that's higher just because you're brilliant, we signed 5 really good £1 million players? I think maybe there is another argument to say when you're investing, I don't know, let's say £1,000 a year in Celtic, something like
Mhm.
that, right? Have you got a right to then kind of say, well, hold on the new, I look at the money that you're bringing in. Why don't we have 5 good £3-4 million players coming in, or £5 million players, or 2, 3, £10 million players coming in? That would be exciting, and I do
Mhm.
think there is an element of the fans just a wee bit right now feeling underwhelmed by the fees that have been spent. Not because they want these players to do badly, not because they're saying they're bad players either, but maybe the underwhelming thing comes from the fact that because of the days of every football fan being a football fan accountant now as well, Steve-O, that maybe now they're looking at just the optics of loads of money in a bank balance, really low level expenditure per player, and they're
Yep.
just a bit sick of that. They don't want to say it because it makes you sound like you're dumbing down an argument about being able to read the ability as a player. But deep down, there is an element of that that's grating on them.
As you says, we've spoke about this show upon show all the way through last season, end of that into the summer early periods. The facts are that there's multiple reasons why fans are going to feel like this. The first being is quite clearly just the sheer income that the club have got. We're probably we are at the highest point of actual income and money that we've got. Finances readily available. They're at the peak of our powers with that respect. Back-to-back Champions League monies. And also, as we said during the summer, we've got Brendan Rodgers as manager. So that instantly raises the bar of what we've got. If we had replaced Ange Postecoglou with, I don't know, let's just say, throw out Neil Lennon, right? Or someone of Neil Lennon's ilk, would the expectancy for that high amount of spending in terms of what the price tag on those players be expected to be quite as high? Probably not, and it would be tempered because we'd go, that manager was the cheap option, so we're cheaping out, and it becomes almost an acceptance. But by appearing to push the boat out and bringing in a marquee name manager coming for the Premier League, obviously without a job, but coming for a Premier League, the expectancy level looks up. And because we know how he left previously, but it was around what the quality of players coming in was, he wasn't involved in it. Again, it was always this expectancy and this perception that equaled loads and loads of spending. So there's multiple factors at play in how the fans feel about it. I think personally, yes, they have been underwhelmed. Have I been necessarily underwhelmed with the business that's come in? I have. I've not really been too impressed with what I've seen. But at the same time, I think fans just want to see us do something we've never really done typically before. I know we could look at Edward and Cham and stuff, but what I mean is we've never really put the foot down financially, at a sustained level. There's always been a wee sprinkle in it here and there. And how much should we be spending? I don't know. It's hard to you can't put a figure on it. Nothing's going to satisfy fans. If you go out and spend 35 million, there'll be some of them saying that's too much, that's crazy. There'll be some saying, oh, if you get 90 million, it should have been 40 million. It doesn't matter. Or if you go out and spend 20 million pound on 4 players, for talking sake, there'll be somebody that goes, fucking hell, man, we should have bought 2 10 million players and a 5 million. You know what I mean? So it doesn't really matter. I think there's a perceived quality around the price tag that's put on it. We've seen Nawrocki come in, circa 4 million. By all accounts, he looks pretty good. There's been cheaper ones that have been legacy signs, like Yang. He looks the part. Home, he looks promising. So, what the fans want, and that's the only thing I would say. I think we'll get a balance. We will make more signings, but I think it's still going to be a mixture. There'll maybe be one slightly higher signing, I reckon, maybe about 6 million, but I'd imagine we'll be in that sort of 3.5 to 5 ratio here it comes in. And that's what I think. Maybe even a 3 with some decent wages. I don't know.
A loan signing? I think there could be a loan in there.
On the loan signing, if I could jump in on that, you mentioned Kieran Tierney. Now, obviously, there's options there. We spoke about the boy Merlin. If that was a position, both left back, and we're going to get both, right?
Wonderful left foot.
Yes. As I'd said to you at the time when the Tierney thing came up, I think as nice as that would be, and I know I'm kind of maybe, contradicting myself here, if Celtic were going to pay a biggish chunk of wages, I'd rather go out and give bigger wages to the likes of that Merlin boy, pay a decent fee, pay him higher wages with a longer sort of period on it, than go and get Kieran Tierney for, let's face it, just a nostalgia season. Because that's all it is.
And bit of romance as well, though. We deserve that as fans.
Well, I know that, but what I mean is in terms of Tierney, yeah, there's an attachment there. Is the romantic side of it and stuff. And is he a good player? Absolutely. He's played at such a high level and we know what you're getting with him. But left back's a position that we really need to strengthen in, and I would rather strengthen for the long term than a stopgap. That's all I'm saying with that sort of thing there.
No, I think that's absolutely fair. It's interesting as well when you talk about the sort of shift in attitude this summer. There was a comment that came in earlier for Patrick McLaughlin, which I starred as I do it. And I think this is really important to bring up because it does really show in the clear light of day how much of a shift in attitude from the fan base I feel, and I'm quite well placed to say it considering we've been doing the number of shows that we've done to the audience that we have. You get a quite broad sort of opinion of fans, and that's not me saying that in a big-headed way. I just mean like the numbers are there. Do you know what I mean? You see loads of different opinions, and it's now over quite a long timeline. So I want to take you back to 12 months ago, and I was banging the drum for this guy to sign for Celtic. He's called Jordan Larson. I felt it was one down the romantic road that I was just saying about Tierney there, but it was one on a free transfer that even if his wages were astronomical, that if he came in, would capture the imagination and would, hopefully if he hit the ground running, would be able to pay back in goals, and then probably you'd get that resale value as well, strange love the doctor,
also get the commercial side of it as well, just by the romance of the name on the back and things. So
absolutely nuts. So he scores in the first minute tonight for Copenhagen. So that tells me one thing: his wages that we're getting speculated about can't be as drastic as what was made out. And also the fact that was the main argument against it. There was a hell of a lot, Steve-O, the majority saying, don't do that, it's a waste of money, vanity signing, we can't afford to break the wage structure, blah, blah, blah. This summer, fast forward to a completely different mindset, whereas we're not spending enough. We have to break structures. And trying to square that circle's been pretty difficult for me because people will say, well, the dynamic's completely different. I would say we were cash rich last summer as well. There seemed to be a change this summer, and I think it comes with the manager. I'll put that out there first and foremost as well. And the fact that obviously he's on the record wages, things like this. And I get that. You would expect that then to get sort of repeated and mirrored and then what our transfer in the playing department strategy is going to be. However, I also think you can't change your tune that much where you are all worried about anyone coming in that broke normal budgets, broke wage budgets and things. And that was for a piece of business that actually made business sense when you scraped it all back as well. Now it seems to be, let's go for it. We need to go for it now. This is the time to do it. So what's led to that change, Steve? Go speculate on that one for me. Why is it suddenly became, like, if I think if John Larson was in a free this summer, for example, I think the demand for him would be tenfold what it was last summer. In fact, most people were saying they didn't want to do it because it would upset the wage balance and things in the squad.
Yeah, I think, the main kicker, why it suddenly became more acceptable or expected, is quite simply, it's the manager. It's Brendan Rodgers. It's literally Gucci belt. That's what, that's it. Gucci manager coming for Gucci League equals he wants better. It's just as simple as that. I think there's nothing really that basic about it. I think it's there's nothing more complex about it. It is that basic. You look at Ange Postecoglou. I don't think he ever really. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong. I don't ever really recall there being a hugely marquee sort of price range player that he's particularly looked at. Could argue the Korean boy that, who's he away to now? Cho. He's
and he went to another club that I don't think was
5 million or something. I don't think that's particularly big money.
No, me neither.
And I don't know if that deal was more about him not wanting it rather than Celtic wanting it, so we'll never know that. But because we never really shopped around or looked at we never really seemed to be linked with players with a high market value, that just became the expected norm. And I don't know, the people think that Ange Postecoglou was capable of getting out and getting those guys for that higher tariff and bring them in. I'm not saying he doesn't have a knowledge of more expensive players, that would be ignorant. But you know what I'm getting at, like the expectancy level was slightly lower, whereas, as I say, Brendan Rodgers is coming in. And even just for that small sample, as you said at the start of, Ncham and Edward, those were quite decent fees. So there's a wee bit of sort of maybe expectancy, again, because of where we are financially, that was going to be somewhat ramped up again. And then looking as well, we got Carter Vickers and Jota. And I know people are saying that was 12 million, that was sort of 6 million. How much did he really have to do with those players? Personally, I don't think that was anything to do with him. I think that would have been part of the scouting network that we had, and they were presented and we had to run his eye over them and ultimately says, yeah, I'll have a wee bit of that. So, I would never have looked at any of those players and said that was the hallmark of, an Ange Postecoglou type signing. I just wouldn't, at all. Whereas if you asked me if it was Brendan Rodgers was the manager at the time, I'd probably say, yeah, that's the kind of player that he'd look at. It sounds silly to say, but I think that we'll start to see what's coming through. We've not really, as this boy, the Swedish boy, obviously said it was something to do with Carol Starfelt's agents helped tee that up, was the wording. How much has that got the footprint of Rodgers on it? I don't know. Are we only going to see Brendan Rodgers signings, as you've said, or predicted, right at the tail end? I really.
I've got a feeling that'll be how it is. I've got a feeling that's.
No, but to bring it full circle, the expectancy is simply based around who's in situ. It's really as basic as that. People expect him coming back, and there was all the he's come back, he must have had assurances because of how it finished the last time, and that is it. There's nothing more to it than that, and it will need to be proven right or wrong one way or another.
Yes, I mean, I think undeniably what has actually led to inadvertently the return of Rodgers has been a bit more of a split in the fan base than there was this time last summer. But one of the things was, one of the issues about why I'm never always, I'm not always against the split in the fan base, if you know what I mean. Some people pushing for more, some people having higher demands again. Because when you actually look at last summer, just to go back to it again, one of the other polarising things was that when you actually consider the players that came in last summer and the little impact they made, I mean, you looked at the optics of those signings, it should have came as no surprise. None of them are going to become Celtic players of any note in their
Mhm.
career. Jota and CCV were pre-arranged. They were already option to buy. So
Yeah.
we've discussed that a million times. The other players that came in, none of them made the cut. None of them.
No.
And yet it was heralded many across the board. Well, not across the board, but across Twitter, right? For a sample section of fan opinion that it was the best transfer window ever. I happen to think already from what I've seen of Holm and Yang, I see a real chance that these two guys in particular could have a big impact. Tilio we don't want to write off yet. Rocky, sorry, at the back as well. That's three already that I'm looking at going,
Yep.
I like the look of them. I see Celtic quality in them. Whatever you hold that to is each to their own, of course. But in my opinion, I think definitely I wouldn't want Yang though to be the direct replacement for Jota. Nor though do I believe in life now in football where you lose a player and you directly replace like for like that
Mhm.
player. You might go get a couple, one that can play in a similar style, one that might be more direct than a Molde Maeda, whatever. It doesn't necessarily need to be like for like. And he's came in, that must be the absolute replacement for that player. You think you can only really say that about the goalkeeper now, right?
Yeah.
I don't really see the the strength in the argument of it being so blatant that Yang's the replacement for Jota. We've downgraded. I don't think it'll work like that, and I think we'll find that with the signings that come. Steve, I did a wee shopping list the other night. It was on Sunday when we did the PMP, so I'll run it by you as well.
Mhm.
In terms of identifying positions, it seems abundantly clear Celtic will be busy. Brendan said we're going to be bringing in players. I believe the players that will come in will be Brendan players. With
Mhm.
that in mind, that would suggest if we're right or I'm right on that one, and you tie those two together, that would mean first team ready players for what positions?
I think I've had a look at it in between injuries and sort of weaknesses. I think what we've long says we need a goalkeeper, right? We're pretty much a stick on Bain's going to be in the vicinity. It appears that Seagrass maybe will be wanting to move, and I'm quite happy for that to happen. So goalkeeper goes without saying. I think with how light we look, obviously if we get in the Swedish boy as a centre half, then that's one. But I would definitely say we need 100% a proper high quality left back and one other defender who preferably is a right back, but if he can play anywhere across the back, right to left, almost like a utility defender. I hate the term, but someone who can, he's good enough to cover.
That's Piqualeta sort of player that you can
Aye,
the
so,
Chelsea
so
boy, something like
a
that.
left back is a firm position, just left back, and that's it. You are a left back, one of them. If we get the Swedish boy in, that helps alleviate a problem, but we also need a defender who's versatile, can play the centre, or preferably out to the right. I would say we definitely need that. I would say that we undoubtedly need another proper striker, out and out, first team challenging, ready
Yeah,
striker.
boy.
And I would have, if you'd said to me before, I would have said we needed a sort of firm midfielder. I'm kind of promised that what I've seen on small sample size of home, he could be a wee bit tougher and he might well reach that. But again, I would argue the point of maybe another wing type player at stroke of midfielder. So I'm saying at least four. I'm saying minimum four, which would be striker, left back, goalkeeper, and another defender that can play across the centre or out to the right. And a midfielder to sprinkle off would be lovely. But if I've got four players, they're my positions as priority.
Goalkeeper, striker,
Striker, a
left
one
back,
back, and one other defender who can
one
play
other defender.
central or out to the right.
What about in the wing? You quite happy to go with the options that we've got? But obviously,
With
as well, this window, what we need to remember, whilst I've always been very optimistic, just to paint the picture fully here, the transfer window with 16 days to go is a two-way two-way opening window. It's a window that can open this way and that way. And but a lot of this is based on us retaining Steve. Just to
what
be clear,
I've said there is based on if we retain what we've currently had.
Yes.
The reason I wouldn't say necessarily another winger is because, well, I'm saying if it was an extra just for bonus, then yeah, give us one. But I think Yang looks like he could be up to it. He looks like he could fill it. Abada, I've certainly been impressed with what I've seen of him. I know he can be a bit hit and miss, but he certainly looks as if he's an evolutionary where he has been. He looks stronger. He looks like he's wanting to win the ball. He's coming deep. He's trying to get more involved. That's exactly what we need. So, and then you've obviously got Maeda that just does Maeda things on that wing. Is he great? No. Could we upgrade him? Yes. But if he's going to be a wing option, then I'm kind of quite happy with that. As I say, that's simply based on what we've got, and assuming it stays, then that would be my top picks.
Yeah, I like it. I'm kind of on board with you with it, to be honest with you. We need to remember as well, whilst, again, I'll go back to my suspicion that because there's been such low fees, these guys that maybe have came in won't get as fair a crack of the whip in fans' minds as being first team ready because they've came in under the radar and aren't heard of, really. But you always learn from that, or you should always learn from that. I wonder with Tilio and Yang, that is two wingers that have came in. Are they for the 20? Do they amount or equate to the 25 million we got for Jota? No, they don't. There's no getting away from that. No, they don't. No. And I understand to a point why fans think that's not building on a position and trying to keep the level as high as it possibly can be, albeit maybe not as high as a player of Jota's quality. But with the two that have came in, the level of scouting being done that I was referring to last night, and that's impressed Brendan so much how the recruitment, the whole recruitment department has improved so dramatically in his words since the last time he was here. I don't know. The wing area may well be that's it done. And Abada he's going to really count on to go, I want you to now really push for 15, 20 this season, and that sort of be in your numbers. You to become the Scotty Sinclair, if you like. And with Maeda, that being his sort of joker in the pack, I think Maeda's the one that he'll be able to start in games you're up against it, and then just hope that when he breaks free, that he won't put in a Pataudry one-on-one sort of finish. And he has one of those Easter Road moments where he just goes, I'm fucking brilliant, watch this. You never know. You never know with Maeda. And then you've got your Yang and Tilio as the sort of supporting roles. Left back, Greg Taylor came in for pelters for Liam at the weekend. I think it's a position he identified that we could strengthen on. I don't think anyone's in any doubt it can be strengthened on. I think Greg Taylor going forward as the backup left back wouldn't be a problem. Interesting to know your thoughts though on the other left back, Bernabe. Obviously, we don't want to talk about court and stuff, Steve, too much, but obviously what's led from it is the disclosure of his wage being 20 grand a month, apparently, which would equate to 5 grand a week. Does that then take us to a space where we can now kind of rule out the fact he ever cost £3.75 million as a transfer fee? Because those numbers don't stack. You don't get £4 million players for 5 grand a week. It doesn't make any sense to me, that.
Listen, I don't know enough about the ins and outs of football business and stuff like that. And, as you say, I can totally understand that if you say 4 million, a fee or whatever, to equate to 5 grand a week, it doesn't seem to make good sums. But
Hibs wages, mate.
I'm saying, I just don't know, like how it works in terms of a club say we want X amount of money from wage. That's just what we value him at. It can be getting £1,000 a week at them, but they're like, no, he's our best player. That's how much we want. And it maybe comes back to this chat that we get where, like I'm just using it for example, folk are talking about, Shankland getting apparently looked at, and Hearts are saying, well, we'd be expecting £5 million for him. He's probably on Bernabe wages. So, sometimes maybe that is just the way it's cut. That's what a team, want for him. And and if you're increasing his wages when it comes to it, then so be it. So it says, I'm not going to sit there and say maybe it didn't cost that, because I don't know, who knows how these deals work. I can see what you're saying with how it doesn't seem to stack up, but it may well be. But I think in terms of, if you look at that as his wage, take the price out of it. I don't think he was ever really looking, if he was coming in, as being a direct first team straight inner, in the fullness of time and having a look at it. And I think that when you listen to the way Rodgers has spoke about him, well, he's addressed his misdemeanours and stuff, but he's openly says he knows he needs to work his defending. So, he's not, if that's the way he's thinking, he needs to work on the defensive side of his game, he's not in any danger really, is he? Suddenly dropping into the team all of a sudden unless necessity dictates. So it is undoubtedly a position that we need to strengthen, and I know that Liam's been sort of riding that into the ground for a while, but listen, as I said at the start of the show, it's galling that you look at players that are featuring in our bench or our match day squad that are run the course of their time, and as again I'll repeat them: Ralston, Taylor, Welsh, Forrest, even an extent Turnbull. A football team and a football squad, to use a comparison, is like a motor. It's like a motor car, right? You need to give it regular servicing. You need to upgrade parts over time, because you can't just keep running it into the ground and expect to get the same level of performance out of it. The likes of a Taylor came in, wasn't great at the start. He found his motion and he picked up, and he had a real good purple patch where he fitted the system and he bought in. But equally, so did your Ralstons and stuff like that. But that was backs against the wall, zero expectation, trying to prove a point. Everybody that season raised their game. And as I said in our chat, again, another cliche, the wolf climbing the hill is more hungry than the one that's at the top. But see if the one at the top has got an elite mindset, they'll stay there. These guys are guys that have just been climbing, and no disrespect to them, they're model professionals and they've done good jobs for us, but there was a reason why he was at Kilmarnock. There was a reason why Ralston couldn't get games at St Johnstone and Dundee United. It was just a perfect alignment for these guys over 1-2 seasons, and now they've ran their course. Welsh, it terrifies me that he's still sitting about. No disrespect to the guy, I'd love to see him succeed, but he's been there for years and he's dropped in and he's never really produced enough to show that he's deserving of staying around. And that's why fans are getting peed off. That's why fans are getting restless. James Forrest, again, it polarises, and you can't deny legendary stats for us. I'll use that term. I think it's a legend. It's up for debate, but you can't deny his record. But
absolutely,
he's so far down the line now. What's he going to do coming off the bench? We need fresh ideas. We need new players that are going to excite. And as I say, it's like a car. You've got to keep servicing a team. You've got to keep changing key parts to keep the machine running as efficiently as it can. You can't keep going to the well with the same guys.
I think that's fair. I think obviously you need to. There's always an evolution that has to happen, and sometimes it can be an emotional thing that you actually feel a wee bit rotten that players come to the end of a cycle, or a youth product's maybe been there on the periphery for a while and never maybe got a fair crack at the whip. You remember how badly, I think, if you remember, Stephen Welsh was used in the COVID season, where he came in from the cold, made a few games, and then suddenly was just right back out the team. And I thought his progression, his pathway, whatever it's been, just seems so disjointed. That's going to upset his development as well. Then you've got someone like Forrest, who you've got, as you say, over 100 goals, over 100 assists. That is legendary statistics.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you've got to look at it and go, but in the 23-24 season, is James Forrest going to be an effective member of the first team, or is it time that he fell further away from it, as may well be the case, may not be. Maybe Brendan finds a way to resurrect him. You never know. Let me ask you, before, as we round up, Steve, for the last sort of 5-10 minutes, there is 250 watching live, by the way, so please, if you can, give us a wee like, give us a wee share, a wee subscribe, all that carry on. We do appreciate so many of being on the bus on a Tuesday night. Now we enter the phase I've called phase 3 for weeks now. And again, completely made up off the top of my head. Well, not off the top of my head. Completely made up on my part, though, Steve. Well, this is not something that's because this is how Celtic operate or anything like that, and I would never try and talk like that. But in my mind, I felt this is going to be the time where the signings get made that are of a Brendan Rodgers production, if you like, right? So what I want to know is where Steve-O is going into the last 15, 16, well, it'll be 15 days as of tomorrow. We've not signed anyone today, let's be real. Going into this final 15 days, do you go into it with trepidation, fear, worry that you've seen this movie before, and almost roll of the eyes feel to it? Or are you on the other side of the coin, where you go into this with excitement? You feel that this is where we will be able to justify the original and initial excitement we had when Brendan Rodgers got the job, where we were all kind of going, no way. Is this going to be the next 15 days that really do shape fully how this window has been once and for all? I think it will do that. But will that be in a way that is good or bad? Are you excited, Steve-O, or are you a wee bit nervy?
I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I know that's sitting on the fence, but I'm neither overly excited.
You can't clip that one of Steve-O, can you? You can't clip him when he says he's not on either side.
Right? So I'm not overly excited, but equally I'm not shitting myself. My concern levels more are around holding on to players rather than players coming in. All right, that I'm more. If I was to say I was worried about something, it would be key players like, say, a Kyogo, a Carter Vickers, even a Baddist, these kind of players. Hatate, I've kind of made my peace with it that I think that he may well be wanting to go. And if that's going to be the case, I would rather go sooner rather than later. Get him out, freeze it up, we know what we need. So that's where the concern comes in. In terms of am I excited? No, because I've not really had anything to get excited about. Now, I know we talk about the silly season and all the links coming in, and yeah, a lot of it's just total shite and it's just agents and people trying to create nonsense. But it does get a wee bit exciting when there's quick fire names. Well, they're going to happen or not. There's not really been anything, has there? There's been a couple of names that have been dropped in. All I want to see is something tangible, and I want to see it within the next week. It's 15 days. If we get to day 8, 9, creeping into 10, and there's nothing really coming in, maybe let's say the Swiss boys, and that looks like a done deal. Let's say he's the only thing that comes in. Then I will start to get more like Mark. I'll start to get more sort of pessimistic about things, because it's abundantly clear, it has been abundantly clear what we need. And there doesn't appear to be anything at this moment in time that we're trying to address it. Now, what I would say is we find ourselves in a very fortunate position because we're 3 points ahead of our closest rivals, as we well know who it is, right? Okay. Now, what I've said again, and I know folk don't like talking about them, but we have a massive, massive game coming up against them that will either blow this league wide open at such an early juncture, or it will breed confidence into them and bring us back to where we were. All I'm saying is, do I think we have, when everybody's fit, a better team under our manager, coached, who get that job done? Yes, I do. But we find ourselves with injuries that look as if they're going to creep onto that game, and I just don't feel comfortable rocking up to Ibrox with what we had at Aberdeen. That's being honest. So I want guys in within the next week to 10 days because they need to come in. People are already saying the squad are learning a new system. It's a change and it takes bedding in. We've said time and time again, you don't have time to bed in at Celtic. Get those players in quick, get them as up to speed or as close as up to speed as possible for bigger games coming down the line. It's all about less to do with worry and excitement about players coming in, because I think they will come in. It's more about how quickly it happens. And that's my thing. As time ticks on, I will eventually start to come into a bit of sort of worry. But at the moment in time, I've got an expectancy. I expect, and I'm comfortable with it, but I'm giving it a week. kick over a week, you ask me that question, you'll get a completely different answer if we're still where we are.
I think I'm close to where you're at. I wonder if there is a bit of Russian roulette going on in terms of the window, and there will be a bit of a frantic sort of final 24 hours at the window as well. I've got a feeling we will do business. I think the Lager one, we need to get that announced, what the delays in announcing that are. I'm not entirely sure because, let's be honest, he may as well have said he was joining Celtic in an Elfsborg shirt after a game the other day. That seems tied up. That seems pretty swift. I wonder if these EPL, potentially EPL players, we're speculating obviously, but if they are, maybe it's an easier time to do the business with a League Cup game this weekend where no one's saying anything's going to be unprofessional and taking your eye off the ball, but maybe there is the extra hour in the week for Brendan, maybe just here and there to spend trying to be as involved as he can in getting moves that he wants pushed over the line. It wouldn't surprise me if there were one more to leave as well in terms of first team. I think Atati, who you touch on, I think would be the most likely candidate for that. You always worry as well, though, because the Abada rumours resurfaced. It looked like that had been nipped in the bud. And O'Reilly, of course, is a player that we know, I think we can tell 100% by he's telling you in different words. But if you read between the lines of his attitude now towards Ange, that was a guy who was looking at the exit door, I think, this summer, no two ways. And if with that in mind, that would suggest that whoever his agent is would have flagged up to clubs down south. Would I be surprised to see interest in him? No, I would not at all. The Atati one, I think, is the most obvious. Obviously, we're not chasing these guys out the door, ladies and gentlemen. This is the last thing we want, is any of the first team players to go. I would like to see, though, the squad size really trimmed as well. I think there's a lot of excess that we're going to just need to make ruthless yay or nay decisions on. And then I think hopefully we'll see one more signing other than Lager in the next week. And I think then we'll get into the final 8 days. And I predict bonkers. I think it will be bonkers. I think the links will will start ramping up. I think we've seen that. I think yesterday was Ryan Fraser, and that was almost like testing the waters. Then it became a League One player. Then it became 2 EPL players today. And the silly season, Steve, was nearly among us.
Oh, yeah, to quickly jump in, the one thing I would say is you're rhyming off these sort of things there, the one thing, if you want to use the term concern, if I'm going to say I'm concerned about something, is we're not being linked with any strikers. That concerns me. Because that is, if we've said right back, we've said goalkeeper, we know we need these, but we need a striker. We've needed a striker, a proper striker, since Giacomakis left. Make no bones.
I agree with that, by the way. I agree with that.
O been out for 6 weeks. And as Mark likes to say, Kyogo's a wee bit made of glass. He needs somebody fully capable to be sitting there. We can't be running with playing Abada through the middle, or even Maeda through the middle. All right, done decent in pre-season, but as we've seen, and we did see again at Aberdeen, can't be depended on. So it concerns me, that I will say concern straight away, that nothing doesn't appear to be on the brow of the hill with regards to a striker. That's the first thing that we need. Defence and everything else, it's not great, but it could be worked. The striker's non-negotiable.
I would love a striker in as well. I'm on the fence of what. I totally agree with the striker thing. If it were me, and I'm convinced that will be something that Brendan wants to do. If I were to cherry pick a position, I think I am in the space where I would go goalkeeper first. I know that's shite on Joe Hart and all that stuff, but I don't really feel sorry for someone that's made like 2 million quid in wages or $1.5 million in wages since he's been here. I'm sure he'll live, and he's done brilliant for us, and we've been a massive plus in his career. Let's get that right, where he was going nowhere. So we still feel guilty about wanting to improve certain positions. You know what I mean? I think when it comes to the goalkeeper one, that would be one I would like to see improved. I know there's still Livakovic chat going on in the
I
live
think with
chat.
Harvey in the last year of his contract, he'll know that Celtic should be looking to get somebody in and bedded in.
I think it's a fans thing, to be honest with you. I don't think it's a professional one. I
No.
think it's very much a fans thing that there's a bit of an emotional sort of thing towards him where they feel bad at the thought of wanting or accepting that it could be better. But who cares? Like, I don't worry about that stuff. That's for other people to worry about. I think in terms of a footballing department decision, yeah, I think the goalkeeper one. And then I'd probably be then looking at left back, striker. But yeah, there's loads of business to be done, Steve. It's been brilliant fun. This is just over an hour, 257 live. I enjoyed the chat tonight, mate. And listen, I absolutely love it. When it comes to this time of year, I love the excitement. I love the fear that it brings. I hope that this summer does finish with a flourish, the same way it began by Brendan coming in. I've got blind faith that the manager will insist on that and isn't going to accept the same navigational problems that other managers before him have accepted,
Yeah.
and then naturally had flopped European campaigns. Europe's hard enough. You need to tool up the manager at the best of your ability. We've got the money there to do it. It'll be very interesting over the next 16 days how we then combat the bids that come in, and of course the clubs that we're trying to take players from. Steve-O, it's been a pleasure having you on. We will be covering it all the whole way through on the bus. As you guys know, we'll be with you pretty much 7 days a week, if not six days a week, nearly 7. This bus doesn't stop. Anyway, we're after 10 o'clock. Everyone enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night. Steve-O, myself, cheers.